Pumpkin Sunshine Band, and Joe, I don't even think they did it when you were younger.
Ryan, can you stop sharing your screen, please?
Yep.
This is a
We
policy.
we are live streaming.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if I might, Mr. Acting Mayor, first of all, I'd like to, on behalf of myself and the team, apologize to both the council and the public for the delay in the start of this meeting. We were having trouble with our live stream, and we did want to make sure that the public could view this meeting. We are now live streaming, so I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Our apologies on behalf of council to the members of the public that have been waiting. We are now calling this meeting to order, and it just reminds us that our staff here has done a great job adapting to technology. It's not easy to translate everything that used to happen in council chambers into this virtual forum. We haven't had a problem like that before, but we're 20 minutes late starting today, and I'm calling the meeting to order. Thanks to everyone for their patience. Okay, the first item. Well, I do need to read a COVID notice. If you can bear with me. Okay, so due to the efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 and to protect all individuals, city facilities will not be open to the public to attend council and committee meetings until further notice. The public can observe meetings of council and committees by viewing the live stream of the open session part of these meetings, which can be accessed on the city's website or on the city's YouTube page, which is linked from the city's homepage. So members of council, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Is just two items, the one bylaw and then the special events item that was referred, Councillor Silovitz and Councillor Chan. Okay, all any discussion there? All in favor? Very good. And any members of council have a disclosure of pecuniary interest on these two items before us? I don't see any. Okay. So we can move forward. And Mr. Clerk, I'll admit I don't. I see the items to be discussed attached as memos, but not an order for an agenda. Do we start with the IC report bylaw?
Pardon me, to you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Yes, the first item on the agenda, item 13.1, is to pass bylaw 6221, a bylaw to appoint an integrity commissioner for the city of Richmond Hill. Okay, so you all got a copy of the bylaw. Is there any discussion on this? It's obviously housekeeping, something that has to happen to go forward. Deputy Mayor Pirelli?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to continue with what I said when we did the interview process, I will not be voting on this bylaw. I believe that the Integrity Commission, the choice of Integrity Commission should have been done by an independent party and not the members that they're adjudicating over. So with the clerk's permission, I will be I will turn my camera off and I will not be voting on this agenda item.
Okay, it's noted. Any other discussion on this bylaw? Okay, I'll need a mover and seconder. Councillor West, Councillor Silovitz, second. A bylaw to bring into effect the contract with our IC commissioner. We have a request for a recorded vote. So, Mr. Clerk, if you could call that out.
Thank you. To Mr. Acting Mayor, voting on the motion to pass the bylaw appointing the Integrity Commissioner, Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Munch.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli indicated that he would not be voting on this matter. So unless he wants to vote, I will be listing him as absent for the vote. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli is absent, and Councillor West.
Yes.
Thank you. That bylaw carries unanimously.
Okay, thanks, council. Now, the next item is referred to this special council meeting from our last council meeting regarding special events. And I believe Councillor West indicated they wanted to speak to this. The clerk, you have wording for an amendment. You have wording for a policy. Comes from our staff with a slight tweaking, and thank you, council, and everyone for the cooperation in working on this in such a short period of time. But it's very important that we have a policy in place. Maybe Mr. Clerk, if you could put the wording.
Just to confirm, Mr. Acting Mayor, the wording for the alternative motion that was discussed as late as an hour or so ago. Is that the one you're looking for? Okay, thank you.
And I'll give members of council as much time as they need to read this. Obviously, information is coming quickly from our staff as they work diligently to get this in place. And
I'll second the motion.
thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
I can't read that fast.
Yeah, an important step forward for this council, so take your time and then certainly feel free to ask questions. But
What is the definition of election period? Is that May 1st or is that, yeah, okay.
May the 1st.
Councillor Sullivan's answered my question. I see you.
Am I to assume that the highlighted or the bold text is what you've changed since we were distributed the agenda?
If I may be of assistance, Mr. Acting Mayor. So I can say, so the bold text was changed, but you will notice that there is a sort of the clause paragraph identifiers are bolded because a couple paragraphs have been removed from this, and that's what I was requested to do. So I've renumbered them.
Maybe you could tell me what was removed.
Sure. Thank you. To you, Mr. Acting Mayor, there was a paragraph, actually, they're all related. All the paragraphs that I've removed were related. They're all related to the public disclosure of the sponsor's name and sponsorship amount.
Yeah, and the only other change from what circulated from staff's recommended policy is the ability for you have essentially 48 hours until Friday. If you're in the works, in fairness, if any councillors have any special events that are already substantially planned and are unable to conform to the policy, there's a window available for one event per councillor to discuss with staff going forward as an exempted policy, as an exempted event.
So back to the clerk, the items that you've removed were in reference to public disclosure for the reporting of the sponsorship name and the amount. So is it suggested that's being removed? That's not a requirement anymore?
If I may, through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, that is correct. So in the original draft that was sent to members of council, there was a suggestion, a possibility for a policy that would say that as part of our public reporting, we would include all the names of all individual sponsors and the sponsorship amount. That would not happen if council adopts the motion as is. It would revert to the original policy, which just the reports would include a cumulative amount of sponsorship per event.
Point of order?
Okay, Deputy Mayor, point of order.
Yeah, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I cannot read the motion on the screen. Is there any way it can be sent to me electronically so I can print it and read it?
Well, as the clerk said, it's just these bolded items. I can have the clerk read out just what was bolded.
Just read it.
If it is certainly helpful, I'm happy to read the motion because it might take time. If I try to copy and paste this into an email and send it to you, it might take time. If you wish, I could read it.
I'm fairly aware of the rule. Task the clerk to read the motion. That's not what I'm requesting. I would like to read it for myself, absorb it, make notes, and comment on it. I can't do that if you read it to me. I can't dictate that fast. I can't write it down, so I can't see it. If you would please send it to me. This is an important matter, as stated by the chairman. I'd like to be able to read it properly. I cannot see it on my screen without.
Mr. Acting Mayor, if your indulgence, I could probably get this email to the council within about 2 minutes.
Okay, if you could just send it to all members of council.
Sure.
While we're waiting for that, Mr. Chairman, I have a document in front of me.
It was on a point of order. You don't have the floor. Councillor West has the floor. With this motion, we're just allowing time because of the late hour that this change is being proposed. Okay, I got you on a list to speak, Deputy Mayor Pirelli. So, yeah, so the clerk is going to be sending out this wording change that's on the screen.
That has been sent, Mr. Acting Mayor.
Okay. So, Councilor West, did you want to speak to it at all? I do want to clarify that the amounts and sponsorships are checks written to the city of Richmond Hill and can therefore quite easily be requested through an FOI process. If the public, we're not hiding anything from the public. It is a public record of all sponsorship amounts that come into the city. But our staff was concerned that the onus would be on individual members of council to protect the corporation in complying with Privacy Act if disclosure conditions were still included in the special events policy. So that could prove to be problematic or could expose the corporation, and for that reason they've been omitted. So I'm sorry, Councillor West, you have the floor then.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to move this. I got to be honest with you. I don't think it's exactly what I would have preferred. I think in my ideal world, but I think at the end of the day, and through the process that we've gone through up to this point, I truly believe that we do not have anywhere close to enough of a policy in place right now around council events. As I mentioned in the last meeting, I truly believe that in 2018, we should have taken the opportunity at that time to pass the recommendations from the auditor at that time around council events. And that's not what council did. And I think that was not the right move, but I think that the motion before us today is significantly better than what we have at the moment. I don't think it's perfect, but I do appreciate that staff went out and interviewed everybody. Most interested in right now is transparency. And I think that every single thing that we do in our life as a counselor needs to be transparent to the public. And so a policy is better than no policy. And I think this policy, in fairness, does go some distance
Point of order.
to the,
Sorry, Councillor West, the point of order, Councillor Munch. Someone else.
Ask the member. I don't believe any member of council is not honorable. I think for anybody to say that the event policy was not put forward and our event guidelines with staff previously to say was not held in an honorable fashion is not correct. So
that's not my words. I didn't say that.
Again, there's
Okay, I'm going to roll.
Misconduct is meant, please be careful of the words when you use words. That everybody on their event side to this time has acted in an honorable fashion, to my knowledge, and I'm not going to support any member of council criticizing any other member of council, either this term or previous
I
term.
don't think Councillor West is disparaging other members at this point. I'm going to allow him to continue, and when it's your turn, you can make comments about his comments. Councillor West.
Thank you. So I guess I would have preferred to see a more robust reporting of the the donor, how much the donor has donated and all that stuff. Because I think, frankly, our public deserves that and they demand that. I do appreciate, though, Mr. Chair, some of the challenges that we've struggled against with, some of our procedures about that. And I do also appreciate my understanding that any of that information is easily FOIable if that's what the public would like to see. So I personally don't think that it's the best ideal situation, but I think that I'm happy to support it. I think it's most important for this council, all of us, to have this in place so that we have a greater degree of transparency and reporting. So, I mean, I'm actually not sure why. Well, I'll leave it at that. I think it's very important that we pass this. I think it is something that the public deserves to know. Where the money is coming from when we're putting on events like this that benefit the community. I think it's important, and I think this does go a fair distance, almost to the finish line, to get us to that point. So I'm happy to move it. I would very much hope that we can pass this unanimously and move on, with our business. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz, you've seconded. Did you want to add anything? Okay, at this point, okay.
No, not necessarily. Thank you. Basically what Councillor West said, I completely agree with. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, Councillor Pirelli and then Councillor Munch.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if you could go on to Councillor Munch and get back to me. I'm still reading the motion.
Okay. Councillor Munch.
Okay, I would like to just say item number A52, A5B2 on page 1 has the event is scheduled to occur within 2 months of this policy being approved by council. I think it's unreasonable given the current situations with the provincial guidelines and this now. All of us are moving, work in progress. Matter of fact, I've just been informed, I was planning an event and it has to engage with the event staff and it's not possible. So I think the clause in that 2 month, I think needs to be discussed because we'll present it to staff what our events is going to be, but the date is subject to a lot of moving parts beyond what we can do or not do. And I don't want to have a situation where we put forwards a date and that date moved and then we're outside the policy. So I hate to have a policy that's we don't know what the problem's going to do. We want to make sure our people are safe, and safety should trump any policy. So I think the May 8th I like the idea of the May 8th that the members of council should each have the opportunity to have at least one event. Some members of council have had an event and some are planning events. And I just think that I don't know what the purpose, I think we should have a deadline. I think that deadline should be December 31st, 2021, given, where it's at. So if you decide, who knows what's going to happen. So that would be my number one, where I'd like to move an amendment. And then number two, I'd like to ask, what's going to happen for a policy, or what is people's opinion of this? Because if people were to have joint events, so if we were to have 3 members of council or 4 members of council who want to do something together, how is that going to be evaluated as it relates to this policy? Should we move forward with this policy? And if we can't agree, then I say we just defer this or we receive it only. So that's my position.
Okay. Are you ready, Deputy Mayor Pirelli, for your comments?
I thought I heard Councillor Munch move an amendment.
You contemplated an amendment?
Yeah, I'm willing to have the discussion first, if we may, but because we may move more and more amendments. And for the spirit of where we're trying to go, I don't really want to be here all day. I don't think the others do. So I want to hear the members of council, but I'm just going to say, I'm saying openly what I intend to do coming on a second round on those 2 issues. I'm telling you where my thoughts are.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, you got the floor. You ready?
Yeah, thank you. So I agree that we should have a policy to guide our events. As I stated at the last meeting, I also believe that it's important that we go over all the details and make sure that we get it right the first time. There's about 30 pages here in the document itself. I've tried in the last 24 hours to read the entire document. I have not been able to. I have a number of concerns. I don't think that they're adequately addressed in the policy, and there is a lot of room for interpretation. So I don't think this is going to be able to be done in with my 5-minute limit of this policy. And I know the chair likes to adhere to the 5-minute limit. So if we're going to, the first motion I'd like to make is that we extend the speaking limit, or at least the number of speaking opportunities during this meeting for this very important document. If I could get a second there, Mr. Chairman, or if you could just rule on that we would extend the 5 minutes or extend the number of speaking opportunities.
Yeah, I'm not going to rule for an extension. Is there a seconder to dispensing with our procedure? I see Councillor Barrows. So that you want 3, 4.
Well, Mr. Chairman, as you stated, this is a very important document, and I do have many questions and comments. It's impossible to know how long it's going to take. I thought I was clear at the last meeting that we should have a workshop where we could discuss all of these issues, but I see that that's not being done. So I'm not going to ask the same question to have a workshop, but if we're going to deal with this motion, I'd just like to have the opportunity to continue until all questions are done. And I don't know if that's 10 minutes or that's 4 opportunities to speak. I don't know.
You're using your first 5 minutes. What's your amendment? You have a seconder for extending time.
Yes, I would like to extend the amount of times that we can speak, unlimited.
Okay.
Mr. Acting Mayor,
Yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't point out in this case that the speaking time limit is a rule in the procedure bylaw that cannot be waived.
Because it's a special council meeting. Yeah.
No, for any meeting. Section 3.4D says that you can't waive any procedural rules related to the number of times to speak or the length of time for speaking.
Right. Okay, so there you go. That's it's not an option for us to dispense with our procedure. I guess I, as chair, could extend some latitude, but what the special counsel, we have given council members an opportunity and fully to speak with staff, to speak with others, to ask their questions, and that's what has to happen. I think
unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, I was not afforded that opportunity.
My understanding is that every member of council was given an opportunity to speak to a staff member, and I'm quite sure that did occur.
Anyways, let me continue because I don't have a lot of time.
Your clock's on hold now, but it starts again.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
You have 2 opportunities.
So here's a list of my concerns. And the first one is, I'll start with A1. I'm not sure why a policy has to limit a member of council to 2 one-day council-led events or 1 two-day event. And the reason I say that is that I don't know why we would want to limit the good works of a member of council who's trying to do benefit for the community. I could understand in a wholesome discussion that you might want to limit the amount of resources the city would put towards it, but to actually limit the amount of days, I don't think that's fair. I'll give an example, Mr. Chairman. The first event I put on in this term of council was City Fest. I spent $110,000 I raised and I spent on that event, Mr. Chairman, and it technically took place over 4 days. Although 2 days were the actual days where the public attended, but there was a day of preparation before and a day of dismantling the following day. So that detail is not in this report and in this policy. So I wouldn't want to leave something like that up to interpretation moving forward. So I don't think there should be, it should be a limit of two 1 days or 1 2-day policy. I could not support that. That would really tie my hands to do that same event once COVID is done. Number 2, I really don't understand, Mr. Chairman, why there has to be a limit of $7,500 in A3. I'm wondering, why can't it be 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000? I believe the purpose of this policy is for transparency and accountability. But I wouldn't want to limit any councillor's ability to do good in the community and to stop a generous donator from giving 20 or 30,000 or 50,000. Or, for example, Mr. Chairman, it could do an event where we're raising money for the hospital and someone wants to donate $1 million. I'd really hate to have to say no to that person if they were willing to donate money for that event toward going to a good charity. So I can't support the $7,500 limit. Of course, I can't support number 4 because it ties the total expenses for the year, fundraising limit of $60,000. $60,000, Mr. Chairman, just a notice to go out to all the residents for a regional councillor for the whole city is about $15,000. That's just for 1 mailing. I wouldn't leave much for the event. I would not be able to put on, oh, it's already 5 minutes? Oh. Well, I would not be able to put on my City Fest event ever again because that costs approximately $100,000. One of the concerns I really have, Mr. Chairman, is that currently I have an event. I think all members of council and staff are familiar with it. It's my Enviro Day event. There's my flyer. And there's about 5,000 households that have registered their wanton participation in this event. I need to raise the money. If we approve this policy, Mr. Chairman, I would automatically be in violation. I would not be able to put on this event. because it clearly states here that unless I've already received the sponsorship or I have a commitment in writing, that I cannot solicit any more donations. And as everyone knows on council, when we ask for sponsorship, we don't normally, I've never gotten, I asked my assistant just before this meeting if we've ever gotten a written commitment for a sponsorship, and the answer was no. In other words, we send out a request, we're grateful to receive a donation, but no one ever says, I commit to giving you $2,000. So I don't have anything in writing. I don't have enough money raised for the event as of yet, but I do anticipate, I have verbal commitments that people will be sending money, but the money's not here. And
Look, I can't see the time screen. What's the time right now? Because of the motion on the screen, I don't see. Are we within the last minute? Is time up?
No, time was up about 2 minutes ago, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so you
Time
can,
expired about 1 minute, yes.
okay, so you can continue to explain to council on your next opportunity on the second round. Does anyone else on the first round want to speak? Councillor
Well,
Mo.
on this first round, I'd like to move an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, you were a minute over your time. You missed your opportunity there. On the second round, you can do so. Anybody else want to speak on a first round? Okay, I don't see any of the speakers, so go ahead. This is now. Oh, sorry, Councillor Leo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have only one concern. Just I think Deputy Mayor Pirelli has just mentioned. Maybe I'll just carry on with it. So I just want to know how this policy is going to impact the event that has been already started. I just want to make sure that no one's got affected by this policy because they already started something. So through you, Mr. Chair,
Can you answer that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, events that are already started and in progress should not be affected by this policy. I believe it states that in the motion that it would be grandfathered through. And this one is ongoing. I know for a fact this one is ongoing. So that would be the event in the transition rules that would be not subject to the parameters of the policy.
Okay, thank you. And I have to agree with the Deputy Mayor that the $60,000 cap. I agree with the cap, but as I mentioned last time, the regional councillor and the local councillor has a different scale of event. So I think it's all fair that maybe the regional representative can have a little bit more amount that they can raise. Okay. I don't have any more questions as of now in the first round. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Okay, I'm going to close down the first round, move to the second. Deputy Mayor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does state in VD, the member is not permitted to accept or solicit any increase in sponsorship from any one source that would exceed the annual amount in section 4.4 beyond what is already received or committed in writing as of Friday, May 8th, 2021. So if we pass this as is, I will not be able to comply with the policy and raise the remainder of the money that I need to do the event. So if maybe through you to the city manager could explain if this applies, because it is a little bit confusing.
The manager?
For you, acting mayor to the deputy mayor, I'm looking at this now, and you're right. It does state that to solicit any additional funds for the event. So we would need an exemption for the existing, event that is ongoing if the member feels he does not have enough funds to put that event on, because it is committed to, it's been advertised. So there would have to be from that, it's in the transition rules, section D is the one you're referring to. The member is not permitted to accept or solicit any increase in sponsorship. And I thought you were talking about C at first. I was looking at C with the 10,000. I just want to state to council, the 7,500 came from the interviews that were done with the councillors who were able to accept the opportunity to meet with the clerk and the treasurer to have their questions answered. 10,000 is a limit in the financial world. Anything over $9,999 from a banking and financial perspective requires significant documentation on where those funds came from. And that is a requirement that we would have to research and put in place for if you allow donations over $10,000.
May I continue, Mr. Chairman?
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So again, following up on the comments made by Councillor Liu, I guess I never thought of it, but there should be a different limit set up. If we all agree that we want a limit, that's great. If it's going to be 60,000 for a ward, which has approximately 25,000 residents, it certainly can't be the same for a regional councillor or the mayor, who has 6 times the amount of residents to deal with. So I'm not suggesting that the 60,000 go to 300,000, but I would at least like it to go to what's already been in practice, which is my event was 110,000. I believe Deputy Mayor DePaula had an event where he raised about $200,000 for his golf tournament. So I would suggest that maybe we have a limit for the regional councillors. That would be my amendment, that we change the maximum to 200,000 and that's in AIV number 4. We change the $7,500 subject to the city manager providing us with whatever documentation is necessary in order to, solicit a sponsorship amount of more. Like I said, somebody may want to be generous. I can't even possibly contemplate all the events that members of council could come up with. But let's say we wanted to help, Yellow Brick House or something like that, and they wanted to make a donation of $50,000. We had a sculpture in front of Center for the Performing Arts that we needed to raise $200,000. Anyways, I would like to increase that limit to $50,000 for regional councillors. That's part of my amendment as well. I would like to take the limit of 1 day council, 2 one-day council-led events, and remove that and make it subject to available funding for the event. That's part of my amendment as well. I would like to remove as part of my amendment that my specific event, the Enviro Day event, not be subject to any of these policies because there's just, I would not be able to comply with all of them. So at least in my amendment, remove commitment in writing, received or committed to in writing, because I don't have any commitments in writing. There's just so much, Mr. Chairman. I really wish that we, had the opportunity to really sit down and go over all of these line by line. But that would be my amendment at this time. So AI, remove the limit of the amount of days. In other words, it could be a 5-day event, it could be a 10-day event, but if staff have a concern with the amount of money that they're going to fund for that event, in kind contribution, for example, I understand there should be a limit, and that limit should be expressed here. So let's put a limit there. Let's take away that arbitrary number. I agree with A2, which, during an election period, election year, we don't, one event only. That's fantastic. Raise the 7,500 for a regional councillor to 50,000, and raise the annual fundraising limit to 200,000, and remove the commitment in writing. And lastly, for my Enviro Day event, remove all the policy, because even the 2 months, Mr. Chairman, this has already been delayed a month because of the stay-at-home order. It may be delayed another month or two. I don't know. And I certainly wouldn't want to disappoint all the residents of Richmond Hill, all 5,000 of them. So those would be my amendments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you got your amendment in time, and that exceeds and runs out your speaking time. Is there a seconder for the Councillor Barros? Are you willing to second? That's yes. Okay. So, Mr. Clerk,
In speaking to the amendment,
we want to get it up so we're clear. Before you start, Councillor Barros, thank you for seconding.
you're welcome.
Mr. Clerk, were you able to catch all that? And there was
Mr. Acting Mayor, I'm just working on it, so I just want to confirm with the Deputy Mayor, if I might.
Sure.
There was, you wanted to delete clause AI, which is the amended wording for 2 events. You wanted to amend the annual fundraising limit from a single sponsor in section 4.
Mr. Clerk, I'd like to respond to your first question. So I don't want to remove all of I. What I want to do is say that I agree with the 2 events per year. I agree with that. I just don't agree that it should be limited to 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 days. So however you want to put the wording, I agree 2 events, but for example, I never anticipated the enormous success of my Enviro Day event. We now have to extend it. I was planning on 1 day, went to 2 days. Now I'm at 4 days, and it's already creating a challenge with staff who are working diligently to try and help me. But they have budgetary restraints, and I can appreciate that. So we'd like to work out those details, but I wouldn't want the event to be stopped because I wasn't conforming with the policy of 2 days or 4 days or 5 days, however long it takes to do it. I can understand putting a restriction. So I like I think it should be two events a year.
If I might on that one point, so in this Deputy Mayor, so I don't forget, by actually deleting that clause, you are achieving that aim, because that reverts to the April 28th policy, draft policy, which said 2 events.
Okay, so that's the difficulty I have, Mr. Clerk, that I've got a 30-page document in front of me that I'm trying to work back and forth through. So thank you for that. So let's remove I and revert back to the 2 events. And through you, Mr. Chair, to the clerk, the 2 events, are they limited in the original April 28th policy in the amount of days that we can have?
The exact wording in that policy was 2 events per year, or 1 event in an election year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That would satisfy that, as you stated. Perfect.
okay. And that's it. Then you've got you want to expand the limits from 60,000 to 200, you said, and from 7,500 to 50,000 on one.
For regional councillors, yes. In A3, I want to extend the annual contribution limit from any one sponsor. I guess that should be 2 words. 50,000 for a regional councillor. If 7,500 is going to be for a ward councillor, then I think proportionately, it's not even proportionally, should be more than that. But anyways, 50,000 would be reasonable. And IV from 60,000 to 200,000 for a regional councillor. unless the ward councilors want the same limit. And as it pertains to my Enviro Day event, Mr. Chairman, and this is the most important to me, is that this policy, like I said, there's too much in it to go through it today. And so I would like my event to be not subject to whatever policy that we pass today, so that I can go ahead, because there's just the 2-month limit. There's just too many things that could go wrong, especially with this pandemic. And I really want to deliver on the commitment I made to the residents. So if the clerk has all that, put on the screen. And sorry, Councillor Barros, I was taking some of your time there to answer the questions.
No, Councillor Barros, your clock will start when this comes up, and you can speak as seconder. Okay, so go ahead, Councillor Barros, while the clerk gets it up. You can start.
I was just going to say that based on this amendment, you can all see that there's a lot in here that we have to contemplate. And I'll second the amendment. But I really didn't come here today prepared to accept the report as it's written. So, perhaps we're going to get through some of this stuff. Deputy Mayor Pirelli has raised a lot of very important points for the regional councillors and the mayor's office. But I mean, just the questions that Councillor Liu asked, then Deputy Mayor Pirelli asked, then the city manager read something and went, "Oh, no, yeah, you're right, Deputy Mayor Pirelli, that doesn't work," which I'm assuming then goes and changes the answer that was given to Councillor Liu. Everyone is still kind of reading this and trying to understand it. Even staff is, oh, maybe that applies, maybe it doesn't. I just think we're rushing this way too quickly. So as I said, I'll support the amendment. And I think Councillor Munch also has some amendments, but I'm just afraid that we're going to be rushing through something, and then we're going to be having to come back to a subsequent meeting because we found out that, oh, that doesn't really work. I do have a question through the chair to staff somewhere. When we say 2 events, is the definition of 2 events that would be created with the support of event services? If a councillor does an event by him or herself with their own committee, is that excluded from the events?
Ms. Dempster?
Through you, Acting Mayor. The intent of the policy was for it to be excluded. Your events that you look after on your own, as long as they're not coming through our records or expecting any type of staff support, this policy only pertains to the council-led events that are using staff resources to facilitate. So it would not you can have as many events as you want, as long as it's not coming through our records and using our staff resources.
Okay, so again, as you can see, it doesn't say that anywhere in there. I guess we need a more full definition of what an event is.
Sorry, go ahead.
I did during the pandemic, I did a mask event. Well, it was a virtual online. So was it an event, or was I just doing a good thing for the residents and getting out help to them? And then I guess the other question is, through the chair to the city manager, what's considered through our system? So if I contact Access Richmond Hill to book a community center room, does that all of a sudden now say, oh, now it's one of your events because you contacted staff to rent a room?
1 minute.
Do you want me to answer the questions now? I can answer what you've been stating. That is, when I say through our records, I mean you're collecting funds, you're depositing them in the city's accounting system. We have to report on them as part of the policy. We're reporting by event. But with staffs, that takes up finance staff and the reporting aspects of things. The support is the two events. Support for the two events is staff time. And there's multiple reasons why we defined what the event was. It's capacity, but it's also fairness and equality. We're using city resources to assist with these. And what the parameters of this always was, it used to be 2 events, 2 days, and now it's growing in scope. How do we as staff make sure that we provide the same level of services to all counselors and that everyone has an equitable proportion? So let's say an event is 4 days and you want to use staff time for 4 days. Well, we need to multiply that and offer that to every member of council. We don't have capacity to do that. So we're trying to put some rules around it that make sense for council, but that also adhere to fairness and capacity considerations that we have to do as staff. I hope I answered your question.
No, now it's more convoluted than ever. So let me use a very clear example. My masks. I collected money. I went to Access Richmond Hill. I deposited it to my events account. I ran the mask program. Because I deposited it to Access Richmond Hill, does that now deem it to be an event?
Yes. Finance staff would be involved in identifying the event, tracking the event, and reporting on the event because it's in our system. And according to this policy, all events that go through our system will be reported on.
So I would have to say that there needs to be then a removal of 2 events. And it needs to be changed to something like 2 in-person events compared to, because we've now got a situation where COVID has changed everything. I can see us running multiple mini events or micro events, which is completely different.
Okay, time's up, Councillor Barros. You have 3 minutes to speak to the event.
And to suggest that
Okay, your time's up.
money in
So
through
we're
the
gonna move on to other speakers.
account is going to be something that is going to create an onerous situation on Access Richmond.
Could you mute Councillor Barros, please? Thank you. Okay, so I really want to speak to this amendment tonight.
What I actually truly believe is that through our actual account, this is something.
Okay, so I want to speak to this amendment. We have 3 minutes to speak to each amendment. I think councillors are really misunderstanding what this policy is governing. The policy is governing the 1 or 2 events that the councillors declare they want to have through our special events program. We have a program where staff will assist you with the 1 or 2 events. It's only 1 event if it's going to be 2 days. And if you want to raise money for Mackenzie Health Hospital, for example, like I did at my event, the checks were made payable to Mackenzie Health. And there's no limit on how many events counselors can be a part of. You can have 100 events. You can raise any amount of money that truly is going to a charity. There is no restriction. But what this special events policy is governing is how you are able to administer the City of Richmond Hill dedicated accounts that you're entrusted with. And there needs to be a policy and limits. The policy is well thought out, well written, and consultation was extensive. It happened in a short time frame. But I really want to applaud our members of staff who reached out to councillors and conducted interviews on this and gave the opportunity for members of council who had concerns to have their questions answered. And you know, in many cases, recommended suggestions were adopted and have been incorporated in what's being proposed. So the amendment, I wouldn't be opposed to restricting what ward councillors could do down to 10 or 15,000 and making the limit for regional councillor 60,000. But going the opposite way and putting a ridiculous upper limit on a regional council event is not in the spirit of why we're here today to adopt a special events policy. I think if you want to acknowledge the disparity between a regional and local event, the amount should be reduced. But we didn't propose to do that because there are some ward councillors with significant events, and the purpose and the hope is for them to be able to continue. We only have one year. Okay, I see 1 minute left. We only have 1 year for which this policy will be in effect. In the election year, you'll be limited to one event, and a 60,000 upper limit is definitely ample room to engage the community and to have a significant event. And if councillors want to fundraise beyond these limits, they are free to do so. You just can't get a check to your own account with the city of Richmond Hill. The checks have to go to the charities that you want to help or the community groups you're working with. Okay, my time's up. So I see Councillor Munch wants to speak. Councillor West will be next, and Deputy Mayor Pirelli on the second round as the mover of the amendment. Councillor Munch.
Good day. My view is that the spirit, which is more important than the letter of the policy, I would hate to see where we have to move in. If we go to a point where purpose of this whole exercise is to try to get guidelines on how we're going to engage to make sure that there's some level of understanding. If we go the other way, where it's going to be excessive, then I'm going to say to you, we should be going to a lot more stringent and say, no, we'll make restrictions. I'm going to go actually the other way. I'm going to make restrictions very difficult, what councillors can or cannot do. I think freedom is respect. And as I said to Councillor West, I don't think any member should be treated with disrespect, and I don't want anybody else. So when members of council treat others with disrespect or give the impression of that, and I think by trying to have the Wild West is not in the best interest of where we're doing to as a spirit where we're going. We are one of the few municipalities that have this type of opportunity. I'm saddened that some members of council continue to be partisan in a number of things that we do. I say to you, as it relates to the spirit of where we need to go as this organization and as representing the community at large, I think that the guidelines are great. And I think we should, if you want to commingle, we should be talking about that. I think to have events at 200,000 and 300,000 and 400,000 and $1 million is excessive. That's how I see it. I think that should be a citywide event. And I think that's a whole other discussion. So I think to have a localized event for myself and to rent a park, it costs the same amount of money if you rent it for yourself or you rent it for the grid as a whole. Obviously the burgers or whatever else you're going to provide, you have to put on a balance. So I think it's good to be fiscally responsible. And I think if the members of council want to make a larger event, they should work with other members of council. I think to put a policy, it's great. I am very, very prudent on my event. I go to garage sales. We look for sales. We buy things secondary hand. It's a very hard event. I have lots of volunteers and there's no way I could do it. I don't even know how I could do it more efficiently. Thank God I got the people I have around me to help me out. So I'm going to say to you, I think the amount of money for one person, because then you go to 2, 3, or 4. Do you really want $1 million? I mean, do you guys have any idea what that means? Let's bring Queen here, shall we? I mean, the group Queen. I mean, what are we going to do? So I'm going to say to you that I think we have to have some balance, and I'm hoping members of council can get there so we can have great government, that we have responsible government, which is what I think we should be doing.
Sorry, Councillor Munch, I do have a point of order.
Fair enough.
Just hold on. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My point of order is, Councillor Munch mentioned $1 million. I believe my amendment says $200,000 in light of the fact that I spent 110,000 at my first City Fest. I expect the second one to be even bigger and better. And I wouldn't want to have to not put it on. I never said $1 million. My amendment is $200,000. If the council can support something close to that and would like to make a suggestion, I'd be happy to change it.
Okay, not really a point of order. Good plug, though. Councillor Munch?
Okay, so anyway, I think to the point, $200,000 times two regional councillors plus the mayor, 600,000 plus the 6 wards. It's getting excessive. And I'm going to say to you that to me, I think that's excessive. I think it's excessive. We're going to try to do. I'm going to say to you, let's get some spirit and let's get it done right. That's my opinion. So I won't be supporting the amendment the way it is now.
Time's up, Councillor. Thanks. Councillor West.
Thank you. We're speaking to the amendment because there is an amendment on the floor right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Could I ask before I start, could it be put up on the screen, please? Because I want to make sure that I'm specifically speaking to the amendment. Okay. Okay, generally speaking, I think this is getting way too complicated. And I'm actually really, on a personal level, I'm kind of disappointed that this is going where it's going. These events, in my opinion, have always just been things that we do as elected officials to bring value to the community. They don't need to be really big. They just, need to bring value to the community. However, on the amendment specifically, I don't see what the difference is between a ward event and a regional councillor event. We're still individual people that are elected to represent the community. Now, that's my personal opinion. I don't see okay, maybe a regional event could be a little bit larger, but the difference between $7,500 and $50,000, that's excessive. I can't support that. The annual fundraising limit, in my opinion, the biggest thing that I'm concerned about in all of this stuff is just the quantum of how much money is being raised here. Our job is not to put on events. Our job is not to do some of the things, in my opinion, that are being done. And that's just, my opinion. And part of the reason for this policy is to kind of put some lines around it. I personally think that changing the fundraising limit up to $200,000 is also quite excessive. And I understand what Deputy Mayor Pirelli is saying. He's putting on a very expensive event. I get that, and I respect that. I just don't agree. I think in fairness, I think there is a point about the Enviro Day Festival. I mean, the point of anything that we're doing here today, I would assume, is not to be onerous on the events that are currently rolling down the hill. I mean, that's fine. I get that. And I was aware of that when we first started having this discussion, although I will say, had we done this type of thing in 2018 at the beginning of the term of council, we wouldn't be in this position right now. So I'm not going to be okay with B. I'm not going to be okay with C. I think that the last point in the amendment, I'm still not entirely positive what that looks like, because I don't have any of the details as to how much fundraising has already been done or the commitments that have been made. I'm going all on Deputy Mayor Pirelli's word on this. But I would hope that if there are legitimate plans that have been made and commitments that have been made, we obviously need to not restrict that at this point in time. So, I get that. But to me, B and C are non-starters. And quite honestly, I just think this whole thing is way too complicated, more so than it needs to be. So those would be my thoughts on the amendment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, time's up. Thanks, Councillor West. Okay, Mr. Clerk, it's only one round on a on an amendment, 3 minutes, right?
That is correct, Mr. Acting Mayor.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor Pirelli, you've already spoke. Anyone else that just want to speak to this amendment that's proposed? Okay, I see Deputy Mayor Pirelli wants to speak. Okay, a point of order from Deputy Mayor Pirelli. If he could be unmuted, he has a point of order. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like a wrap up, Mr. Chairman. Is that permitted through the clerk?
No. Mr. Clerk, there's no wrap-ups or amendments. Mr. Clerk, are you there?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm actually just looking up to see, that's not a question I faced before. I don't want to give an incorrect answer.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, yes, the mover would have the right for a wrap up the way the procedure bylaw is written.
Okay, 3 minutes. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank
Wrap
you.
up.
Thank you. You know, I'd like to respond to some of the comments made by my my colleagues here. I agree. Maybe if we really gave it a lot of thought, Mr. Chairman, we should cancel these events in their entirety. I think that the spirit of what we're trying to do is great, but in fact, there's so much complication, there's so much criticism from the public that if this fails, Mr. Chairman, I'll probably be moving a motion to cancel all events by all members of council. You know, I've heard many times, I've heard the words, my ward. When we speak about an application in Ward 3, for example, we always go to the ward councillor because he's the ward councillor. I find it a little bit inconvenient that today we're not talking about the ward councillor, separating that from the regional councillor. Today everyone's equal, but no one's ever come to me as a regional council on an application because they've always gone to the ward councillor first. You know, I've heard things like, you know, these events are supposed to be a benefit to the community of some kind. Mr. Chairman, I challenge anyone to tell me that the 8,000 masks plus that I sent out to members of Richmond Hill weren't a benefit to the community. They were both a benefit to the businesses. It was an advertisement to shop local and as a safety procedure. So imagine, I can't imagine a future where I would not be able to do that. And that cost about $70,000, Mr. Chairman. So that's why I think it's very important that these limits not be, you know, put on any member of council, really. But if the local councillors, the ward councillors are okay with their limit, then so be it. But I'm not okay with my limit. It just doesn't fit in with the amount of good works that I want to do in the community. The bin program, for example, bin replacement, as we all know, Mr. Chairman, right now, members of the public, even if they want to pay for the bin, the city's closed. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this event, is that I want people to be able to exchange their broken bins. And I want them to compost because I'm a big supporter of the environment. But if I'm limited with all these policies, it goes even further, Mr. Chairman, but I don't have the time to speak to them all. But some of the comments in the 30-page of policy is that, you know, things have to be reasonable. And the question begs.
Time's up. You had 3 minutes to wrap up. I have a recorded vote requested by Councillor Silovitz. So, Mr. Clerk, if you could call the roll on the amendment.
Thank you. Do members want me to share this on the screen just to, before we, thank you. Through Mr. Acting Mayor, voting on the amendment moved by Regional Local Councillor Crowley, seconded by Councillor Barrows. Councillor Solovitz.
No.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Councillor Liu, yes, thank you. Councillor Barrows.
Yes, and I would like everything to be separated.
To you, Mr. Acting Mayor, then I do need to start this vote over again if we're going to vote separately, with your indulgence. So we will go back, if I might, and we will deal with clause A of the motion first. Just give me 1 second, please. Yeah, so we'll deal with clause A, which is the amendment is to delete clause AI. So voting on that clause, Councillor Solovitz.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Barrows.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch, please.
No.
Thank you. Councillor West.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
No.
And thank you. And Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
Thank you. Clause A of the amendment fails to carry. Voting on clause B of the amendment, Councillor Solovitz.
No.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Munch.
Are we doing B now or C now?
B.
B, okay. No, I won't do that. No.
Thank you. Councillor West.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Barrows.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
No.
Thank you. Clause B of the amendment fails to carry. Voting on clause C of the amendment, Councillor Solovitz.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Munch.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor West.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Barrows.
Yes.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. And Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. So clause C of the motion fails to carry. Voting on clause of the amendment, my apologies. Voting on clause D of the amendment, Councillor Solovitz.
No.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
No.
Thank you. Councillor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch, please.
I think all members should be from a council event policy, from the new policy or the-
So Councillor Munch.
can I have clarification? The council event policy?
If I might, since I'm calling the vote, I can give you a brief clarification. This would, if this amendment passes, then the main motion as amended passes. Yes, Deputy Mayor Pirelli's currently scheduled Enviro Day event would not be subject to the policy.
To any of our, not the revised policy, our old policy.
We didn't have a policy.
No, correct. I'm sorry, Councillor, and I do need to call your vote at this time.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barrows.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
Thank you. So clause D of the amendment does carry. So the only part of the amendment that carries is clause D, which adds clause B back to the main motion.
You gotta give me kudos for that. I didn't think that was gonna go through.
Well, not sure it's even worth going forward with a policy. It's Enviro Day every day for the rest of the year now. Members of council, we don't have a policy. We don't have any restrictions on what councilors can and can't do with these events. Procedurally, we have no choice but to vote on the motion as amended.
Well, I'd like to move amendment.
Councilor Mon?
Policy, like, we haven't talked about, have we talked about receiving the report? And all we've moved so far, as I understand, is just the one item. Am I right?
We have a motion on the floor from Councilors West and Councilor Silovitz. To
receive the report, or what?
In its entirety with a few changes that weren't noted in the staff report that are noted at the beginning of this meeting, and now an amendment has been proposed and passed.
So I'd like to move an amendment, so when you're ready, I'd like to move an amendment.
Okay, you got the floor now, please.
So I'd like to move an amendment where there, in the situation where an event is being put on by more than one member of council, that the commingling of an event can work collaboratively, and we should be setting a policy. So I think that should 3 members of council or more wish to have an event, then they would be allowed to have an event that would be commingled. So the maximum of the event would be, greater. So we go from
You're
there. And
looking
then,
for an aggregate of the totals.
yes, but however, this should work. This should not be in competition with existing. So I have 2 amendments. This should not be in competition or in any way, shape, or form of city initiatives already. And then also, I'd like to say in item 1.3 of the policy, whereby it states that the mayor it is recognized that events routinely scheduled by the office of the mayor will have priority. I would also say that the members of council should also be given priority so that we're working collectively with event staff, so that we don't have situations where event staff plan to do something and the ward councilors or the regional or the mayor choose to do something, that everyone's kind of working collaboratively. There's no competition between them, because I don't find that that's happening now. And I think if we're going to put a policy in place, it should be a policy about events, not just about council, but also about the events from the city as a whole. Seeing we are talking about the magnitude of the events that we're putting on now, and Councillor Pirelli is doing a fabulous job on his events. I'm sure that other councillors, Councillor Liu, I know also does a pretty good job. I try and do my bit, and I'm sure everyone else does theirs. So I think that's my 2 motions are basically that the commingling of 3 or more members of council were to be at that point commingled if they were to get 3 members of council to work collaboratively. And then second of all, on item 1.3, that members of council events are taken as a priority over event staff. And therefore, the event staff have to give members of council and not the public some sort of advanced knowing, so we don't have any competition when events are being done, because I've run into that situation, and Councillor Pirelli's Enviro Day is an example of what we used to do from the city, but to some degree, and this year just didn't happen for, I think COVID reasons. So we need to kind of get everybody to work together and instead outside their silo, from staff, council, and the differentiation within council. That would be my motion.
Okay.
I do apologize, Mr. Acting Mayor. Because an amendment needs to be succinct and related to the policy, I do need to know specifically what the councillor wants in the motion, please. And I do apologize.
Okay. So in the event where there is more than one, where an event is taking place with more than one member, with more than 2 members of council, that though at that point, then their fundraising and their event can be increased accordingly, as if there were 3 events. It would count not as 1 event, but would count as perhaps 3 events, each councillor using that as part of their event stuff. So we're clear. So for example, if I want to have an Enviro Day with Councillor Silovitz and Councillor West, that the 3 of us could, for example, form an event together. And that would be then be, you'd be able to raise more than your 60,000. You'd be able to run 180,000 at that point, for example.
So you would, so just to clarify, your amendment would be that the policy provides an allowance for commingled events organized by 3 or more members of council with fundraising limits beyond what is in the current policy?
Yes, in line with the $60,000 maximum, but times 3 in this case because it's sponsored with
And then would this be in addition to the 2
No.
events that a member of council?
No, it would stay within your 2 event guideline.
So then so a member of council, just because I really do need to clarify this. So if a member of council, 3 members of council wanted to do a commingled event, as you refer to that, that would count towards their 2 event, each of those members of council 2 event limit, but the fundraising for that event would be higher than the current 60,000?
It would be 180,000 because it'd be for, again, it would be come out of their $60,000 total.
Okay.
They can raise for a year up to 180,000 because the total, the policy of $60,000 per counselor would maintain that amount.
No,
However, but it would be able, but the expense and how you move forward. The reason, I want the word commingling so we're clear that we can have a policy in place where if more than 1 member of council was to have an event, that we have a policy for members of council who have wanted to
I hear you, Councillor. And I do apologize because I obviously can't be involved in any debate, nor would I want to. I'm just trying to clarify what the amendment would say.
just a commingling, a commingling of events is
So
possible.
you're
with 3 or more members of
clarifying
council.
your amendment. You're not debating.
Yeah, so if I might then, so yes. So in the current draft of the policy, each member of council has an annual fundraising limit of $60,000 in 2 events. You're proposing, so if I might, just let me finish. You're proposing that commingled events would be permitted under the policy, and there would be a fundraising limit on top of the 60,000 for commingled events, or if the total, so each member of council would retain their 60,000, but they could be. So if I might then just clarify. So under this policy, you want 3 or more members of council be able to run a commingled event subject to the current limits anyways.
Yes,
And you just want that clearly permissible in the policy.
yes.
Okay, that actually, I can certainly do that. Now I have a clear understanding of that amendment. Just if you allow me a moment, please.
Okay. Okay. And the second thing you wanted to propose, I got a point of order from Deputy Mayor Pirelli.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't understand Councillor Munch's amendment. Did he want a cumulative budget? For example, what is the limit now? It's $60,000. Is it, so if him and I do an event, could it be 120,000 or does it have to be 60? I think the clerk understood it as it's still 60,000, Tom. Is that what you want?
No, it's 120. It's the policy that we have on is $60,000 per member of council. If you have 2 members of council that are doing an event, it would then be 60 plus 60 for a total of 120,000 in line with their $60,000 capacity, but now they're able to utilize their combined funds towards a combined event.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And it would have to be 3 or more members of council. So at that point, we get a nice sized event. So my number is 3 or more members of council.
So not 2.
No, 3 or more.
Okay.
Councilor Barrow, so you're indicating you want to second this?
So I am, but I thought that the understanding in what Councillor Munch's motion was, the motion that I'd be willing to second, was that it could be two or more members of council, and that, yes, their funds could commingle, but it wouldn't take away from the counselors that joined the main event. It wouldn't take away from their number of events. For example, if Councillor Munch hosts an event and he says, he puts it out to the group, who would like to participate? And I go, oh, I'll participate. It doesn't come out of my 2 events a year, because it doesn't add any additional work to the staff. And that's what the concern was when the city manager told me that it'd be equitable. Well, what Councillor Munch is saying, we should have an ability to have other people on our accounts and then benefit from the joining of money. And if I then go and do an event myself, because I've got 2 left, whatever money I put into Councillor Munch's event, well, of course, I've got less money to run my 2 events, but I still have that $60,000 ceiling. So I'd be willing to second that motion if that's how we actually figured it out.
What the motion I'm trying to do is say, if somebody wants to have a larger event that requires a larger budget than $60,000, that they have the capacity to do that. And how they can do that is they could have 3 members of council, which would get them to 180,000, which would give them to that $200,000 limit, which is where the number that Councillor Pirelli was looking for. So I said, although it's not 200, it's 180, it's close enough. So I'm trying to bridge the difference to say, if you're looking for $200,000, I can get to 180, but you just have to work with other members of council to make that a priority for that particular event. So the $200,000 request did not pass council. This is an opportunity whereby we can get clarity. And then also in line with my other amendment that's coming, this is a friendly or a contributory approach, so that we are, as an event, as a municipality, the public doesn't necessarily understand if it is, they see an event, although they may understand what a ward event is, or a regional event is, or a city of Richmond Hill event is. We want to make sure that we're providing an event policy for all the events, not just targeted towards one particular segment of that event provider. So this is a way for us, in my view, helping to debate, to say, if you want to find some happy medium, we have a maximum. If you need more, there's a way for you to get more. We don't have a commingling anywhere in the policy. Now we do. And then if you want to furthermore say, hey, how do we prioritize our events? We make sure that we have a commingling, being from the mayor's office, council, and then staff. Those are the 2 amendments I made. That help you?
Mr. Acting Mayor, just to clarify, so I do have the first part of that amendment down, namely the joint events. And the amendment will say joint event, just for language purposes. And I believe the councillor had a second part of the amendment. And could you just very briefly clarify that for me, please?
Policy 1.3 on page 3 of 8 of our member of council events policy. Just also add in that the other the mayor's office obviously is the priority office as the head of council and representing the best interests of all of council.
Yes.
Now, and then the second would be the other members of council would also have in terms of priority, would also take a stance in line, and that it works alongside our event staff, and that there's not a competitive or competing forces.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna call upon our city manager to comment here. A significant amount of time has been taken by our staff to draft a workable policy to protect the interests of council and staff. We're venturing into a whole different territory. Ms. Dempster, do you want to comment on this proposed amendment?
Can't hear.
Yeah, can we unmute the city?
I was muted. Through you, Acting Mayor. We have an events policy for city-led events. That takes priority. That's approved by council. It takes priority And we build that schedule annually. We work on it. It's part of what community services does. This is a separate policy strictly related to councillor events. So this isn't meaning that the office of the mayor's events would have priority over city-led events. It was just giving preference to any, this item 1.3 gives preference to the mayor's events because anything the mayor puts on is on behalf of all council over the other council-led events. So if you want to have if you want to change that so that everyone on council is treated equally, that's fine. That would be council's choice. But we have a city events policy that supersedes this. And Ms. Jocelyn may have further items to add to that.
So with the greatest respect, what's written here, and I quote, and I didn't write this report. This report was written by the policy, by staff. And what it specifically says, and I quote, "It is recognized that events routinely scheduled by the office of the mayor will have priority in the use of Richmond Hill resources." It does not say Richmond Hill Resources is the entire corporation. And if the mayor has the office, which I entirely agree with the report, and I'm going to say to you, as the head of council, I think that's great. And what I'm saying as a councillor and as members of council, should be working with the best interest, as do staff, but members of council are saying we are going to have an event policy. We're not working in isolation. I would hope that staff don't work in isolation. I would say to you, I recognize that the mayor's office as head of council, which is representing the best interest of council, takes the priority of city resources. So too do members of council also hold to their priority for the best interest of Richmond Hill in their area. And members of council will work with our bureaucratic event staff and say that we are going to work collaboratively towards the objective and the vision of the city, not the other way around. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Director Mayor, can I'll just add to
Yes,
it?
city manager, go ahead.
I agree with Councillor Munch's statements. We do work collaboratively with all councils to try and meet all of your needs. All I was stating, I just wanted to clarify that that statement is in relation to this policy. And I understand your comments about Richmond Hill Resources, but it's in relation to this policy. We have another policy for council for city-led events. But that schedules in advance. Everyone's aware of what we put on. If there's conflicts, who makes the decision on what event goes forward?
That's why it goes to council. So council, again, in my opinion, council is supreme. Council is supreme. Maybe not in your opinion. I believe the council is supreme, and that when council, and I believe we have an events policy, I don't think we should have 3 policies or 2 policies on events. I think we should have a combined policy. I think the public would expect that the organization is working as a whole. I would think that many members are saying when they elect their representatives that they are to represent the best interests and the legacy and the vision of the municipality. I don't think that the public as a whole would expect it the other way. I appreciate the city manager's position on how the city functions. I believe council is supreme. It's up to members of council to make a determination what they feel where it's going to be. My motion is to say that in line with 1.3, that the head of council, the mayor's office, should act as the head of the corporation. And I believe that the members of council below that should also be working with event staff, not to work in a...
Councilor Munch, we just need the wording for your amendment.
Oh, just that the amendment saying is that the members of council shall also, following the mayor's priority, also be working with event staff to assure that we have a policy that is in line with the council and then the city of Richmond Hill in that order. Otherwise, we have to rethink about how we're assigning ourselves.
You want these council special events to preempt our standing events, Canada Day and Santa Claus Parade and things that are put on
I'm saying they should be.
I want them to
I get members of council that the event staff are doing the event staff. And I'd be willing to bet you that most members of council can't tell me the 5 events that the council staff are doing this year. So how can we arrange our events and then go to staff and say, we want to do this? And they said, oh, you know what? We're doing that event too. and we're starting, it becomes very collaborative. And so this has already happened this year. And I don't want that to, and it's a great
End
example.
debate and just deal with an amendment that's being proposed, but I
All
don't
I'm
think.
saying is that we want to make sure that our event policy is holistic, that the event staff and our council staff and our council event policy are working collaboratively. And I believe the pecking order should go from the mayor's
Mr.
office,
Clerk?
members of council, and staff. We're not competing with
Okay.
the city. We just want to work collaboratively with them.
Minute, Councillor Munch. The clerk wants to weigh in here.
If I might, because we do, I would just cautious member of the council that moving amendment is not for the purpose of debate. It's merely for clarifying what the wording of the amendment shall be. Debate happens separately. If it is, Councillor, I apologize. If your position here is to say that events under this policy supersede events under the city event policy, which the acting mayor was referring to, events that are held under that policy, is it your amendment that events under this policy take precedence over those events?
I'm saying 1.3 that's in our, I'm answering your question. 1.3 states that the mayor will have priority of the Richmond Hill resources. I'm now adding to that to say council events shall also be prioritized with event staff on prioritizing their events throughout the year. So therefore that I don't want to have competition with our event staff, and I would hope our event staff won't want to have competition with members of council. That is what is happening today because the event staff have their policy and council have their policy. If we're going to have separate policies for everything we do in this organization, then let's state that now, that where the organization works one way and council works another.
So if I might then, through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, the only way to do that would be for your amendment to say that an event under this policy takes precedence over the council approved policy for city events. Because the council event policy that is before you does distinguish between city events, so the events that the city manager was discussing or the ones that were the acting mayor suggested, they fall under a different policy. So the only amendment you could make to achieve it would be to say that events under this policy take precedence over events under that policy.
Well, but we need, thank you. We do need a policy. What are we going to do?
Councillor, you're not debating.
No, but I'm going to say, again, I hear you. Again, I hear you. Guys, what's going to happen when we have a conflict? We don't have a policy. Which policy supersedes? I don't want to have competing policies. I want to have a succinct policy.
Not competing. It's addressed in there. We have.
I don't know. I don't know how that's going to happen when we have an event with our staff.
Members of council, when you go to have a special event, you're supposed to consult with our staff, inform them of what your intentions are, what you'd like to do, and they will be able to say if there's a conflict, if they can help, if they can provide assistance.
Yeah, but that's my point, sir. That's my point. You just said it, bang, right there. You just said it. I do not want staff to tell me what my policy is. I think we should have a policy from council should have a policy on things that we do so we don't have an interpretation by somebody who's going to make who's going to be the referee. I think we should have a clear event policy and a clear guideline. We have it here, 1.3.
I think you're right, Councillor Munch, and I think this is the reason all other municipalities in Ontario have canceled their program of having councillors run special events.
Then if we want to do that, then why don't we cancel the event staff and we'll do it all during into council. I'm willing to do that too.
Attempting to accommodate a tradition in midterm. And many councillors have events that they run in their communities, but
we used to have that. We
adopt this policy, or we can abolish the councillor events.
Or we used to have an event person here. That event person's no longer here, and now we're trying to coordinate.
We've lost order. You're well past your time. You were making an
I'm just
amendment.
trying to move an amendment.
I'm not going to debate it. You're welcome to put an amendment on the floor. And then we can debate it.
Okay, as I
If I
said,
might, through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, the only amendment that I am clear on that the councillor has moved is related to the joint council-led event. And I have that prepared to go on the screen. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what the second part of the amendment is. And I do,
to follow up at 1.3 at the end, when you have the mayor's office taking precedent over Richmond Hill Resources. At the end there, you can
Clerk
have
suggested wording. You want the council, these council events.
members of council shall have their members of council shall have their events coordinated through Richmond Hill event staff to make sure that their events can be carried through. That's it, as a priority.
It's a priority.
and I do need to clarify, as a priority over city events. That's if I might, through me, Mr. Acting Mayor, if the way the policy is structured, that is the only thing that would accomplish that.
Well, see, I don't agree with you, but okay. I'm going to say to you that, I don't want to add that end because we're drawing a line in the sand. I'm saying that.
Councillor West, do you have a point of order?
This has gone on for a whole lot more than 5 minutes. And I, with all respect to the confusion that I think the member has on this, and that's fine. I mean, when is this going to end?
When we're finished.
I'm trying to get the wording for an amendment. Councillor,
Sorry, you're impatient, sir, but we have to get the policy. Public policy is very important. Sorry. We're saying is that 1.3 does not address the members of council. And we do need to make sure members of council, we don't want to have a two-tier approach or three.
Councillor Munch, are you making an amendment or not? We're not.
Yes, as I said to you, I think at the end of 1.3, we say the mayor's office can go first.
And the council-led special events take priority over city events. Fine, that's your amendment?
It's not what I said, but go ahead, fine.
That's
no. I when the point of order came in, I didn't say that. I'm trying to stop that. But if you guys want to bring it in, Councillor West has that, no problem. Acting Mayor, you want that? No problem. I'm good with that.
Your amendment, Councillor.
I'll go with what you guys just said.
Okay.
Okay. I'll say that the members of council, so mayor gets priority over the use of Richmond Hill resources. The mayor's office gets priority over everything. Then members, after that, we say members of council shall also have their events prioritized.
Mr. Clerk, you had said there's a wording that could give effect to that. So you want councils, if two or more members of council get together on an event,
three.
Aggregate limits will apply, and you want these council events to take priority over city-led events. That's the amendment. Anyone else want to?
I said prioritize.
Want to second that? We got a seconder, Councillor Barrows. Okay, well, the clerk's going to put it up on the screen. Councillor Barrows, you want to speak?
Yeah, I just want to just thank everyone for their patience. This is really an important point that Councillor Munch is articulating when it comes to the policy that's in front of us, and I wholeheartedly support it. And I would hope that everyone, in the spirit of what we're trying to get done here, is able to support this also as we move through this this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor West, and then Deputy Mayor.
Okay, again, just to focus what I'm about to say, can I have the amendment or amendments? I'm not even sure which.
I think the clerk's working on getting it up for us.
Okay, well, until I see that, I'm actually not entirely positive what I'm going to be speaking about. So maybe I could pass for now, and I'll come back to when I can see it on the screen.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to express that this is the spirit of cooperation. Moving forward, however long it takes to get the policy right, I think it's important. Even at the end of the day, I think there's things we won't we wouldn't even have contemplated. But at least, Councillor Munch is looking at it and saying, well, we have to try and tighten it up so that there's a full appreciation and understanding for the policy in its fairness and equity. And so, like Councillor Barros, I'm happy to support this wholeheartedly. I look forward to hearing for more amendments because I think that, we want to get it right. I think we're all on the same page. And it's just going to take a little time, but as we come up with more amendments and hope, hey, one could hope maybe at the end of the day, it'll be perfect. But for now, I'll support this. I understand exactly what Councillor Munch is saying. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor West, you can see it now. You ready to go?
Yeah.
If I might, Mr. Acting Mayor, can I just confirm that that is, that I've got the councillor's intentions
The
correct?
mover of the amendment agree with what's written?
You guys are making B much more difficult because of your intolerance, but I'm going to say to you that the B was not, really wish people would work a little more cooperatively, but whatever. I don't want members events. I don't want member events.
Stricken. Do you want it changed? What do you want?
I don't want members of council to compete, nor do I want the event staff to compete with council. So I would just say members of council events will take priority. I think you can eliminate the rest because my concern is that can be taken to a whole other level. That whole end of it was what Councillor West and Acting Mayor DePaolo want to move in there. If you guys want to move that, that's fine. That was not my intent. I'm trying to work cooperatively. I'm trying to make it clear as to how things are going. And I don't really want to have a situation whereby we have competing interests. That wasn't my really intent. And it could be perceived here in that way because of people not grasping what we're really trying to achieve as a whole. And there's not a power struggle. This is simply a way to try to get
Councillor Munch, don't editorialize.
So members of council events will take priority over
wording. Do you want to change this wording?
Just after over events.
Okay, so Mr. Clerk, please strike that to say member of council's events will take priority over other events. So what you want?
Yeah, we can say, yeah, fine.
Okay.
That, of course, that goes after, yeah, at the end of clause 1.3. So we know that the mayor takes priority, obviously, because in terms of pecking order. Yes. Yes, good.
Councillor West.
Okay. Okay, well, on clause A, this is going in exactly the opposite direction that I think it needs to be going. And I've kind of said this before, but I think it bears repeating. It feels to me like we're creating an entire industry here. Like this is not the core of our job as councillors. I mean, we put on these events to, have a nice thing to happen in the community, but this is not the core of why we're elected to be councillors. But what it's doing is it's creating an enormous fundraising machine that's, I frankly think is getting way out of hand. I don't think there's any reason for us to be going out to the business community, the development community, whoever, and asking for the kind of funding that we're now talking about. I mean, there's no, I personally don't see any reason for putting on an event of this magnitude in terms of cost. And so therefore, the fundraising needs are not anywhere close to what we're talking about here. I just feel that this whole thing is getting out of hand. In terms of clause B, I still don't really understand what the purpose of this is, but I guess the way it's worded now, given the point that I just made, I actually, like, if we have other events like Canada Day and the other events that we put on as a citywide run event by the city of Richmond Hill, I mean, frankly, I speak only for myself, none of the events that I would put on should ever be in competition with the kinds of events that would be put on by like Canada Day or any of the events like that. So I don't even see the need for it, let alone I wouldn't be in favor of saying that my event would be more important than any other event. So
Point of order, Councillor Munch.
Hey.
Procedurally, we're not following something we should be doing.
Oh. the principle of this is more important than the letter. And I'm going to say to them.
This is
I'm gonna
not a
say-
point of order,
Richard,
Councilor
you can
Mike. You're
debate
just
that,
taking the
Councilor.
opportunity to interrupt.
You have to let me speak, sir. I let you speak when there's a point of order. I know you're tolerant, but you have to be respectful of others.
What's your point of
Excuse me.
order? Councillor West, just a second. What's your point of order, Councillor
So
Munt?
the spirit of this, and I've said it repeatedly, is that we need to have an understanding of events. And the events here, when there's we have to work in the best interest of this city. So what we're saying is here, when there's, right now,
Councillor Munch, this is not a point of order. A point of
he's saying
order.
there's no
members of
competition
council,
here.
A point of order.
Nobody's trying to be competitive. This is not a competitive, this is no competition here.
Okay, that it doesn't
policy.
matter. Point of order is, and you only can.
He's saying there's competition. It's going out of hand. This is not what this is about. This is about a policy.
That's still not the point of order. A point of order is when we're doing something procedurally incorrect, and you're drawing it to my attention. But
Then speak to the clause and speak to the intent,
That's
not to
debate.
that would be my saying, because otherwise we're going to get this. We'll hear all day. We'll keep
Councillor
doing
West is
amendment after amendment. That's what we want to
directly
do.
To the amendment, and he has the floor. Okay, thank you, Councillor West.
Thank you. Okay, I'm very concerned with where this is going, and this is exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I mean, having 3 members of council getting together to put on an event. I mean, of course we can cooperate with each other. I hope we always would. I mean, when I have an event, I invite everybody to the event, but adding to the budget of the event because 3 members are getting together to put on the event doesn't, in my opinion, defeats the entire purpose of what we're trying to do here. And it creates a situation where the fundraising needs and the amount of money that we're collecting from businesses and so on in the community, it's just, in my opinion, it's way out of line with what is appropriate. So I can't support any of these. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shilovitz.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just bear with me here. I don't know what's going on here. And that's not because I'm sick. It is because there's chaos. And none of us, we've lost the focus of this, in my opinion. And I don't agree with these amendments. I think they're actually contrary to what is in the original motion, which is seconded by me. So I want to know through you, I want to ask a couple of questions. I know that we've got these amendments on the screen, but this is very important. Through you, Mr. Chair, to either to Clerk Hike or to our City Manager Dempster. It's my understanding that we were all spoken to by, I know I had a meeting with Stephen and with Treasurer Dexter about this in order for them to formulate the policy that we see before us today in the staff report. So I would just like to get some clarification. Was every member of council spoken with, given their opinions at the time, so that everything that's being discussed here was taken into consideration by the professionals who are our staff and the professionals who write our policy? So through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Acting.
Thank you. Ms. Dempster, can you please speak to the process that got us here?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I'm actually going to ask our clerk.
Sorry, Ms. Dempster, I have to take a point of order from Councillor Barrows. Councillor Barrows.
Thank you. My point of order is there is an amendment on the floor. We're speaking to the amendment. My question to you, Mr. Chair, is the councillor that currently has the floor, she's asking a question of staff about a process that I believe is unrelated to this amendment that's on the floor. I would ask that we would continue the debate on the amendment.
Okay, I disagree, Councillor. This is an amendment to the policy, and Councillor Silvas has a concern that staff is not involved, and she's got a question to Ms. Dempster. I'm going to allow Ms. Dempster to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I'm going to ask our clerk, Mr. Height, to answer the question. He conducted the process, so he would be best to speak to how he did it.
Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Through Mr. Acting Mayor, following council's direction at its meeting last week, that we staff consult with members of council and then bring back this policy to a special meeting held this week. I immediately, as requested by Ms. Dempster, the city manager, Treasurer Dexter and I were requested. We contacted all members of council with a number of potential times to meet with Mr. Dexter and myself via Zoom to discuss the policy and any concerns they might have. Recognizing that certain members of council, their own schedules might be busy. We also did provide the opportunity, if they weren't able to meet, to submit to us written comments or for those. That was an option that was provided to all members of council.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, did all members of council speak with you and or give you comments?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, out of deference to members of council.
Mr. Clerk. Point of order, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. For privacy reasons, I don't think the clerk should be answering that question. Thank you.
Okay, I'll withdraw the question. As far as I'm concerned, there's too much going on here. It's too chaotic, and we can't possibly come up with an appropriate policy here that is so important to what we do and as councillors and what we do with the city as well, because now we're bringing in the council, the city events as well. So what I would like to ask is perhaps what we need to do, and believe me, I want this policy in place, but perhaps what is necessary is that this is referred back to staff, and staff once again attempts to speak to all members of council so that they can get everybody's opinions and then come up with a policy that comes to the council floor, albeit virtual, that comes to the council floor that we can debate, because this is, I can't vote on this. This is, the confusion here is way too great.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
I agree with you 100%, Councillor Silovitz. Are you moving a referral of this
Yes.
back to staff?
Yes.
I think, we did try to get this in place quickly, but I think we can wait one more week. Councillor West, you want a second?
Yes, I'm sorry to have to support the referral, and I appreciate.
Councillor West, I just got a point of order from Councillor Munch. Is it something procedurally out of line here?
This is so utterly ridiculous.
If you disagree with the referral, you'll have a chance.
Hold on, this is utterly ridiculous. The question by Councillor Silovitz, we had a process, whoa. You're not gonna
Not a
finish?
point of
Okay,
order.
Councillor,
Councillor,
go.
you'll have a
Joe,
chance.
go, just go.
You'll have a chance, Councillor
I'm
West.
done, I'm done.
I'm sorry to have to support this, but,
The whole point.
and I appreciate that Councillor Silovitz has brought that up, because I think cumulatively, we're starting to get down to the point where we're making decisions completely on the fly. We had a motion in front of us at the very beginning of all of this stuff that was cohesive, and I had confidence that even with the slight changes that were made at the last minute, made sense. But right now, we're in a place where I'm not sure actually what the ramifications are. And the last thing in the world I want to happen is for us to be making a decision that isn't fully vetted by staff. So I don't see there's probably not a bad reason to be moving this out one more week and having it come back, and so we can have the input that we need and the analysis from staff.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So we have now a referral motion on the floor that takes precedence. Councillor Barros, you're next. Councillor Munch, do you want to speak? No, okay.
So speaking to the referral motion, and to suggest that it's going to go back to staff and everything I tell staff to take out of the report, they're going to take out. Well, that's not going to happen. Staff's going to listen to all members of council and go, okay, well, Councillor Barros has an opinion, but it's only one opinion of the group, so we're not going to change the policy. So this debate and all these amendments are going to happen whenever we come back again. So if members of council don't want to work through getting to the place where we want to be, that's fine. But I just don't see where referring it back to staff is going to bring us somewhere new, unless we're asking staff to go and research other municipalities or go and research something because it now becomes germane to one of the amendments. Other than that, we're making amendments on the policy that we don't like that clearly didn't get taken out when we spoke to staff. So I can't support the referral. We either need to continue going ahead with the debate, or we just need to vote no and say, we don't need the policy. Thank you very much, because obviously some members of council aren't getting what they want.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, as we can see, I'm speaking to the referral. This has come full circle. I'm glad to see my council colleagues agree with me that we needed to have a workshop on this. And that's what I've been saying right from the beginning. Let's have a workshop in the fall. The events are already that are in progress, and we should have a workshop. If we're not going to have a workshop, Councillor Barros is 100% correct. It doesn't matter how many times we speak to staff. It's the policy is going to come back. We're all going to have our individual input, and then this council needs to vote on them. So, look, I was against it coming back this fast. I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing, but in the spirit of going along to get along, I'll go along to get along. I'm grateful for the fact that my event will, be able to help all, 5,000 homes in Richmond Hill with green bin and blue bin replacement as well as compost. I don't want to lose that opportunity, so I cannot support the referral motion. Councillor Barros is absolutely correct. Even next week, it's just going to come back to the same thing. We're going to have this debate on and on and on. If the referral motion fails, I'm happy to entertain a motion to refer it to a workshop in the fall. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Well, I will support the referral. I think it's absolutely what we do need to do. Members of council, do we want a policy or not? Our staff has gone to great lengths to get this in place in a timely fashion. One more week's not going to I don't think unfairly affect any member of council, but I just encourage those of you who still have concerns, objections, to make those known, make them known to staff. And this is a policy with wide-ranging implications, and it has to be worded carefully. It has to be thought through. It has to be vetted through our legal staff, through our professional staff that only comprehensively through their knowledge of our organization will policy changes be put in place that are gonna be effective, that are gonna prevent any sort of dispute down the road. So we had a staff endorsed policy on the floor. If members of council still want to make changes, there's time in intervening between now and Wednesday to have concerns addressed. I really hope members of council avail themselves of that time, and hope they can support this referral, because we're headed on dangerous ground, just ad hoc creating a policy for something that is so important. So I don't see any other speakers. Call the vote on the referral. Mr. Clerk, could you conduct a recorded vote? We have a recorded vote request.
Sorry. Yeah, I absolutely can. I do need clarification. Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I did receive I did hear that the motion is to refer back to staff for further consultation with members of council. I actually did not hear a report back date. Was that part of the motion?
Yes, the date will be Wednesday, our regular council meeting.
That's
Thank you very much. So, and who, I apologize once again, the request for the recorded vote was by,
Requested by Councillor Silovitz, who's also the mover, and Councillor West, the seconder of the
perfect.
referral.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for that. So voting on the motion, refer this matter back to staff. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Mudge. I see Councillor Mudge is holding up his no sign. Acting Mayor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Prelli.
No.
No, thank you. Councillor Barros.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Councillor Liu,
No.
please. No, thank you. Councillor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion to refer this matter back to staff for further consultation and a report back next week fails on a tie vote. Mr. Acting Mayor, we're back to Councillor Munch's amendment.
Okay, I think everyone spoke on that. I think we're at the point of putting that to a vote. But if I didn't have the opportunity. Can you put that back on the screen, please, Mr. Clerk? Yeah. Okay, well, I don't support this amendment. It is what it was the cause of the reason I think it needs referral. I don't think we can just be picking words and creating policy like this. I have grave concerns about whether, you know, when members of council are having an event, they can't be dictating to staff and taking resources away from our standing traditional, long time traditional events. I don't understand the need for that, why there can't be cooperation. Why members of council can't have their events outside of standing city events, or city events are, I believe, far more important and should take precedent. And this is the whole attempt here with council special events is to have our staff assist councillors with engagement opportunities, get the family out on a sunny summer day, and you know, we've gone far past the intention of what these special events were supposed to be for. You know, councillors were unique in Richmond Hill, given the opportunity to have some staff support. And is that a point of order, Deputy Mayor? I'll have to recognize that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted a clarification. You said that the motion is about a priority over city-led events. I don't believe that's what the motion we have in front of us. So I just wanted to clarify that. Can we put that back on the screen? Because I never saw that. If that's what we're voting on, I can't support that. But I can support what Councillor Munch originally said. So
Absolutely agreed.
you could just clarify that, please.
Council events take priority over other events. Okay, so whatever the other events are, I think we've strayed away from the intent of the purpose of what these member of council events are. There was a member of council event policy on the floor that I was comfortable in supporting. And I don't know what member of council events are going to take priority over. We've strayed so far away from what was a nice gesture at one point by our staff to say, hey, you know, councillors, if you want to have an event, we can dedicate some staff members to assisting with that. I don't think councillors should be having events at all with their own account. It's run by the city, and going out to members of public. I agree with the majority of municipalities in this province that this is not a proper way for councils to organize events, and I hold to the contention that members of council are encouraged and supported, and they can raise money for any given local group. They can help their residents. They can do handouts of items if they want to, and can lead all kinds of forums where they're gathering. But it's the manner in which it's being done, the potential for extortion or applicants before this city council, the amounts which
Whoa,
are
whoa, whoa, extortion,
outrageous.
extortion?
Is that a point of order?
Yes, is there something Mr. Chairman, that's going on? Is someone being extorted?
With the absence of a policy, with the fact that 8 members of council have an account, this isn't my time because I'm responding to the point of order. The fact that we have these accounts and are soliciting funds, I said, allows for the potential for extortion. And I was clear, and we can rewind. There's a
I
potential.
don't know why you're mentioning that, Mr. Chairman.
Because this is the reason we need a policy to limit and control what's going on. So we're not limiting it, we're not controlling it. I am opposed to these amendments. My time's up. Anyone else want to speak to the proposed amendment? Okay, request for a recorded vote from Councillor West. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, voting on the amendment moved by Councillor Munch, seconded by Councillor Barros. Councillor West.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Munch.
Yes.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Chan. Sorry, Councillor Chan.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
No.
Thank you. That amendment fails on a tie vote.
Anyone want to move a 10 or 15 minute recess at this point?
No,
Councillor
We're
Sullivan?
we're done.
Councillor West? Okay, so we'll recess to
What do we
3:40
need a recess for? Why don't we just call the vote?
on. The main motion as amended.
We have a main motion amended. Do you want to go into what?
We have threats of many, many more amendments. That's why I was thinking.
You just asked, is there any more amendments? And no one said anything. And then you wanted to go take a break for what? That's my question.
I see. Is there any more speakers on? Okay. We have a motion on the floor. It has been amended. That we have, the only thing left to do is to vote on the main motion as amended.
On the screen, please.
Councillor, you haven't had a chance to speak. You can go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'm ready to vote. That's why I didn't support a referral motion, because I really appreciate all the discussions in the past 2 hours. I have a more understanding of what this is all about. The spirit is about accountability and transparency. I totally agree with that. We need a policy for sure. And I think the other part that I try to understand more today is we need a policy to make sure that no councillor, no one member abuse staff resources. So I think that's the main part of this whole policy, and I totally agree with it. We're not in an event business, and we have a job to do. So that's why I'm ready to vote, and I'm in support of the policy. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Shilovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question for B. Should that, and this is just a question, should that have the 2021 date on it? Or are you saying this is just generic and that Deputy Mayor Pirelli's Enviro Day event is exempt from the council event policy, period? I think that's pertinent. And I don't know who answers that. Thank you.
Not sure who to direct that to. Ms. Dempster?
If I might, then through Mr. Acting Mayor. I am obviously in council's hands here. The amendment, that was what the amendment. It's up to council to decide what this means, if it needs some clarity around it. I think the amendment does say that the Enviro Day event planned, so that has connotations to it, by Deputy Mayor Pirelli be exempt from the council event policy. Yeah, if council wants and to be specific here and include the words 2021, but that could either be done as a friendly amendment or as an amendment.
I would ask that is added.
I had a question too to Ms. Dempster. Without B, isn't the Enviro Day event that are already grandfathered and exempted? Does this policy not already exempt that event, Ms. Dempster?
Through you, Acting Mayor, the intent was the way we wrote it was to exempt that event because it's actively being planned, scheduled, and any others that are in the works. But that one is further along. I do understand that the concern with the date, but that event is exempt. However, Deputy Mayor Pirelli had a point. Section D was, we did this Section D, the way it's written lends to some gray area as to whether or not it would be exempt from the other pieces. We were not aware that he required more fundraising to cover the costs of his event. So we thought it was covered within the parameters that we wrote. However, after he made his comments, Section D would apply. So having this exemption is important for his event, so that Section D doesn't prohibit him from raising money to cover the cost of his event.
Okay.
So I would ask then either
Councilor.
that it would be added, that I would ask that 2021 be added there, planned for 2021.
But point of order, Deputy Mayor.
Open-ended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That would be totally improper. We've already voted on the amendment. We're now voting on the motion as amended. We cannot reconsider.
I agree. I agree that we did vote on that, unless the clerk was saying it could be friendly, because
That's fine. Then could you please separate it out?
Forward.
So I ask for recorded votes, and could you please separate B?
Separate A and B, and just for clarity, I think Ms. Dempster, if that amendment got brought in because you admitted that you hadn't contemplated in being able to further fundraise. If the amendment was to further fundraise, but how are you going to how could the city possibly protect itself if the councillor continues to insist that Enviro Day goes every day, and Enviro Day that he needs $4 million to pay off the cost of?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
I'm asking a question.
Point of order, Mr.
You have a point of order. What is it?
Mr. Chairman, I think I was very clear. This is my Enviro Day event.
Okay,
It's not every year. It's not for next year's event. It's for this year's event. We all know what we're talking about. It's this event.
this year, does it take place on an end on a certain day? And then, because that would really help members of council that need to vote right now. But
Mr. Chairman, this event was scheduled originally for Mother's Day, which
okay,
was May 15th and 16th.
because of the lockdown, it was
Because of the stay-at-home order, in conjunction with staff, it was pushed off to June. Now, we hope that it will go off in June. Its popularity has led me to have to add a few more days because we're over 5,000
You
residents.
answered my question. So
Yeah, so once it's over, Mr. Chairman,
the popularity of the event is in flux and the date is in flux and
there's
it's subject to no policy whatsoever.
correct.
Yes, and you can do whatever you want in your city account.
No, Mr. Chairman, what I
I just
said,
hope members of council understand what they're voting for. We're going to vote on A, we're going to vote on B. Recorded vote has been requested.
there's no separating of A and B, I don't believe, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to check with the clerk.
I think we've always allowed that in the past, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Acting Mayor, yes, you may separate these two clauses.
So are you suggesting that if B doesn't pass, then our amendment wasn't valid?
No, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, an amendment is merely a procedural vote. So an amendment is always a procedural vote to add something to the main motion. The final vote on the main motion is always the vote that counts under the procedure bylaw and parliamentary rules. So when a person can vote for an amendment, a procedural vote for an amendment, and then subsequently vote against the same thing on the main motion, that is permitted because an amendment is a procedural matter.
Councillor West.
Yeah, well, this just adds more to the confusion, which I've been talking about for the last 2 hours. So the idea that I thought we were voting on when we voted on the amendment was that we're not putting Deputy Mayor Pirelli's in an untenable situation. But the thing is, though, that now what I'm hearing about is that there's many days that this could go on for several days, and there, it's not ending. Now, I mean, I understand that the challenges that the pandemic faces, but the thing is, though, that I'm actually not clear now on what it is exactly that that amendment actually means, because my interpretation would be within reason that it would comply with as many of the new policies and so on as possible, and that if a little bit of extra money was required because it was started under the lack of policy regime that we currently have, that there would be some reasonableness to be able to correct that. I think that's fair. But can I ask somebody, I mean, I'm at a loss. Can I ask somebody on staff, like, okay, so what does this mean then if we can't even put a date on
exactly what it says? Read item B.
I'm not clear. I would like to know how the staff interprets this.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to respond. Maybe
No, I'm not asking for you, Deputy Mayor Pirelli. I'm asking for staff to respond on how it is that they would interpret this. That's my concern.
How would you interpret this?
Through you, Acting Mayor, the intent was to support the existing event because it has grown, but there is no commitment. We're still working through it. I believe the Deputy Mayor did say he needs more days, but we can't do it for him. So we're trying to find him solutions to meet the obligations he's made to the public. And that's why he needs additional funds, because staff can't support a 4-day event. We have the Healthy Yards event at the same weekend, I believe. We have other commitments internally, and we have staffing challenges. So from what I know, I mean, again, the commissioner may want to jump in, is our staff's been working with his staff to try and figure out options for him to meet his obligations, which may require he raise more money.
Just if I can, through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the intent of Councillor Pirelli's not to put words in the deputy mayor's mouth, but his intent was always, I think, intended for his 2021 event to be able to continue, because he has committed to an overserved residents, and he's already committed to the expenditures that go along with that, and therefore he has to do some additional fundraising because of that that additional context. So I believe that's his intent, and I believe the wording that says planned event covers that off as 2021, in my opinion.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Pirelli, you want to speak? And
Yeah,
then
thank you.
Shannon, I have you next.
Thank you for staff's understanding of what exactly it is that this was all about. There is no nefarious intent here. This is a 2021 event. It's the one that's planned. If it goes 3 days, 4 days, I understand staff's constraints. If they can't provide the extra support, I'm happy to make arrangements. We're working collaboratively to get it done. It may go to a 5th day or a 6th day, but that'll be at my cost, not at the city's cost. So we're all on the same page. This is just for this event. It's not next year's event or the year after that. It's just this year. And it'll probably be done, hopefully, I'm hoping, in the month of June. But if it goes to July, I just want it, yeah, exactly, fingers crossed, Commissioner Jocelyn. But it's growing exponentially. It's a great program, and I just want to get it done. If it's June or July, it's not going to go beyond the summer, because the compost won't be any good to anybody by the end of the summer. So yes, Councillor West, to answer your question, it's just for 2021. And if it would help everybody to support it, happy to do a friendly amendment, change it to this planned event for 2021.
Councillor Chan?
Yes, acting mayor, I gathered at a critical moment, my connection was down. But I do want to speak early on, so maybe there's a time that the motion that was, I guess, a vote on is that something that we have already entertained in the very beginning of the
No, we lost Councillor Chan there, so he will be able to speak when he reconnects.
No comment needed.
Okay. To
you, Mr. Acting Mayor, I'll just advise, we're actually going to send Councillor Chan the phone number since he's having internet connection problems, so he should be able to join us by phone.
Okay, we'll wait for him before we conduct the vote here.
Mr. Clerk, let him know if he wants to come into my office. We're happy to have him in our office to speak.
Okay, so we're waiting for Councillor Chan to come back. If this does pass, I'm going to have to give notice of my intention to host also an event. I hadn't planned to do that, but we have to be fair.
Again, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases my colleagues on council, Councillor Silvas, Councillor West, I'm happy to change it to 2021. It's just for this event, and staff have already confirmed that.
Okay,
and as everybody knows,
members of council, you got 48 hours to let the city know. And in fairness, the way the policy is drafted, you have one event per councillor.
And because you guys didn't want the amendment, you have done 2 months. So let's hope you can put an event together in 2 months.
So, Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting for Councillor Chan, if you would give me some indulgence.
Exempted. Whoa, the exemption, yeah, but does that apply to B?
Yeah, you guys didn't want that. That's what you
2
wanted.
months.
That's what you wanted.
So the grandfathered events are limited to 2 months.
That's right.
Ms. Dempster, would that say that the transition clause will kick in, even
Yeah.
though this is such an open-ended exemption being granted?
The transition rules is regarding, oh, sorry, through you, Mr. Dr. Mayor, the transition rules is regarding one event per counselor that has been planned, is in the planning stages. We're to be notified by May 8th so that we can put that in our calendar from event services, put it in their calendar, ensure we have the capacity. But Councillor Munch is correct. The event is scheduled to occur within 2 months of this policy being approved by council.
You guys did want to have that discussion. You got your wish.
I'm still not 100% clear, Ms. Dempster. We have a blanket exemption being granted to this particular event, spelled out specifically. It now will apply to the transition rules will apply to the event listed in clause B.
Through you, Mr. Dr. Mayor, there's only one event listed in clause B, and that's the Enviro event. That's the only event that councilors voted on to exempt from this policy. The transition rules apply to every other event.
Every other event. So the transition rules do not apply.
They do apply. They don't apply to the environment. They apply to everything else. So any other events that were.
My event that I'm about to give you notice of, I only have 2 months to get it done, but he's got all of 21.
Under the existing, Joe, we had this discussion and you guys didn't want to support this discussion. The first thing I said when I spoke, and then Councillor Weston, you guys, we all said, okay, you don't want to have a discussion. You can't have it now. At least I won't support it because you didn't want to have it then. We just had that discussion during this debate. That's what you guys wanted. You're getting everything you wanted.
Through you, Mr. Dr. Mayor, the transition rules, if you want to strike out the 2 months, because if that's challenging, because we are in COVID, we're in lockdown, and it may take longer, as long as you're going to have it, we have to know by Friday what month you're going to have it in. But if you wanted to strike out the 2 month window and
are we negotiating here? Are we negotiating? Hold on. We had this discussion in council. We have a staff report. Are you negotiating your staff report now, Ms. CEO? Are you negotiating?
Councillor Munch, you're way out of line. We're asking questions. She's answering questions.
So the report is pretty general. We had a discussion about it in council. It's brought forward. I even had this discussion, and you guys went away.
Deputy Mayor
remarkable.
Pirelli's been patiently waiting to speak. I think we've all exhausted our second round on this one, but Deputy Mayor?
This would be my first opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman. I understand what Councillor Munch is saying. He's saying that, whatever. The point is that if anybody has an event in the planning process that, like I have, and they want to speak about it, I would have thought they would have spoken about it. And if they needed it to be part of the exemption, I'm happy to vote in that because they need to be part of the exemption. And I thank council for allowing me to do my event this way. I did want to say, Mr. Chairman, that not everybody knows this yet, but my intention is to share this event with all members of council. We have approximately 800 or 900 residents per ward. And I'm trying to, the reason I want to do 4 days, Mr. Chairman, is that I want to split up times, for example, 9 till 12 on one day for Ward 1, and invite Councillor Barrows to help me with his residents to do the program. I do the same in Ward 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If the council members wanted to come and join me in this program, because at the end of the day, I think we all want the same thing. So that offer is there for all members of council to come and join me. My staff will be reaching out to all members of council individually to see if they're available to join me on that date in that time slot. And that's part of what we're trying to do, Mr. Chairman. If Councillor Munch or any other member of council would like to make an amendment so that their event that's already planned, that they already have commitments to, needs an exemption, I'm happy to support that as well, in order to be fair to every member of council.
Okay, no one wanted to restrict your ability to have your event and complete your event and finish your event. And it's all the exemptions were already in place in the policy. I don't know why we added a B, and if this B passes, it will not, that your event will not be subject to any rules. You don't have to discuss what you're doing. You have $4 million would still be appropriate and proper and good. $4 million is fine, and if you go 6 months with it,
no, Mr. Chairman, that's not being fair, Mr. Chairman. That's not the intent here, and for you to categorize it that way is not fair. That's not the intent of what's going on here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
The
well,
city manager has clarified this a couple of times, that he would be in a difficult spot, but you keep ignoring that, Mr. Chair. So if you'd like, ask the city manager again to explain why the clause is necessary.
I've heard it explained. Okay, well, we're just left to vote here. Okay, Councillor Chan has returned. Okay, Councillor Chan, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. First of all, talk about technology. It's that my connection has broken down, and it's good that actually I'm able to reconnect colleagues on council and also members of public. Now, part of my appearances, after all, this is COVID time for the protection of everyone. Very quickly, I have listened attentively for almost now 3 hours. I'm glad we are coming back to this motion, basically, in essence, that has been tabled not too long ago, soon after the meeting began. I have no issue whatsoever with the motion itself. I understand where people might have planned it for event, and I'm also glad to hear that city manager already mentioned those have been grandfathered, using the term, or grandparented. So I would like to say that one of these days, when the time comes, maybe sometime in the fall or next year, I would be happy with, we'll even consider, perhaps for the next term, or maybe this is for next term to consider, is that no members of council events, period, then we don't have to get the discussion we have. I appreciate Council Munch was coming in with the suggestion about the cooperation. But you know what? There's no end to we feel really truly collaborative. There's no end the permutation or the combination how we do things. The policy cannot possibly anticipate how creative we could be. So, well, we're not moving forward to that. So let's, I for one will support the motion, and let's, we as the acting mayor say, at some point in time, we should look to be consistent with all other municipalities as far as the staff have mentioned and the acting mayor referred to. Do without it, perhaps, maybe not this term, but next term. So I just want to state what my position is. I'm support within the policy, and it's really truly putting into accountability and transparency and reporting. That's the important part. Reporting all the sponsorships received online. And I think that's for the public to see and public to judge. Thank you very much, Acting Mayor. And again, my apologies for the inconvenience, but I'm glad I'm being reconnected with the technology. Thank
you. Thank you, Councillor Chan. Very well said. I'll definitely be campaigning on doing away with these events for next term. Okay, members of council, we got a motion that's amended in front of us. It's been asked to be split out, and it's been asked for a recorded vote. Can the clerk please conduct a recorded vote?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, voting on clause A of the motion, Councillor Silovitz.
Clause A, so yes.
Clause A, thank you. Councillor Barros.
Yes.
Sorry,
Can
Councillor Barros.
can we see the motion on the?
Sure.
on the-
Apologize. There you are. I apologize, Councillor Barros. I could not hear you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch, could you speak that thing? I see a yes. Councillor Munch, it is a recorded vote. I do really need you to speak your vote, please. You're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor West. Turn your mute on, Councillor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
Thank you. So clause A of the motion carries unanimously. Voting on clause B of the motion, Councillor Silovitz.
No.
Thank you. Councillor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Acting Mayor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Munch.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. And that clause carries only and the entire motion is carried.
Okay. So thank you, council. This has been a 3-hour meeting, a lot longer than we may have thought. I thank everyone for their participation here today. Just looking for a motion to adjourn. I think that's a confirmatory bylaw is probably in order. Councillor Silovitz moved, seconder, Councillor West. The confirmatory bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this council meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And just a motion to adjourn from Councillor Chan and Silovitz. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Thank you, council. We'll see you again shortly. Later in a few hours.